This call is now being recorded.
Okay, I'll start the class now. And in fact, this is the last part of cerebral vascular disorders. Hmm? And next class, I think so I'll go with epilepsy or something. Now, this is we have been discussing about cerebral vascular disorders in the last 5-6 classes, and this is the last part of it. So, the previous class was a bit more complex. Anyway, I will try to make this class a bit simpler. Now, this is a brain. You can see this brain. The most important thing which I want, my interest is this part. Here you can see this is the brain stem, and this is a, what is this? This is cerebellum. This is the cerebellum, and this is the brain stem. This is midbrain, this is pons, and this is medulla. And this is a connection between that cerebellum and the, what is this? Pons. There are three peduncles coming, one from each. So this, there is a connection now. This one, just remember, the posterior part of the brainstem is covered by cerebellum. That's something which you have to know in this, from this diagram. Just I want to show that part from this diagram. Okay, I'll go to the next class. Now I'll focus my attention for medulla. In fact, the previous classes I discussed about pons. Are you people hearing me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay then. Now this is the, today my focus is on medulla. Medulla I want to focus. This is the pons here, upper part, and you have got medulla down. This part is medulla. This is what? Ventral surface or a posterior surface? Can anybody tell me? This is a medulla I am telling you.
Posterior surface.
Huh? What is that?
Surface, sir.
Posterior surface. Somewhere it is echoing. Just see. This is the anterior surface or ventral surface. You can see there was the answer here only. You can see there is a anterior fissure. So this is a anterior surface of the medulla. Okay, the posterior surface I'll come to show, because why I specifically asked posteriorly, there is a fourth ventricle. There is a fourth ventricle. In the anteriorly, you have these two things. What are these? What are these? Can anybody tell me? What is this? Pyramids. Pyramids. What are the importance of pyramids? Pyramidal tract.
Pyramidal decussation.
That is here. Pyramidal decussation acronym here. You can see there. There is a cross here. This is the whole thing is pyramid. This part is pyramid. This pyramid, there is a anterior medial fissure. You can see that, and there is one more fissure, ventrolateral fissure. Then posterolateral fissure. There is one more. There are three fissures here on the anterior surface. In between the anterior medial fissure and the ventrolateral fissure, there is this part is what is this? Pyramidal tract, pyramid, or cortico-spinal tracts. Pyramidal tracts, they come down here, and at the lower part of the medulla they decussate. That means from right fibers go to the left and left fibers go to the right. This is a crossing happens here. See, the pyramid is a cross section for not only, sorry, medulla is a crossing section. There is a crossing happening for both motor and also sensory. Sensory. Which sensory? Posterior column sensory. Whereas the spinothalamic tract crossing happens where? Crossing to the opposite side. Spinothalamic tract. It happens immediately after entering the spinal cord. The spinal cord, the what is this? Posteriorly, the nerve root comes, it goes to the opposite side immediately within two segments for what? Spinothalamic tract. Whereas posterior column, there is a posterior column, you know that? Gracilis and cuneatus tracts posteriorly. They cross inside the medulla only. There is a both motor crossing and sensory crossing. I'm telling you this. I'll go on details about this. Just I want to give a holistic picture before getting into details of the medulla. This is a pyramid where you get what? corticospinal tracts. And there is a olive here. You can say olive. Olive. This is a olive. This is, in fact, there is a connection between cerebellum here. What is olive? I'll come to that day later. They're concerned with the olive. Motor coordination. Motor coordination. They're concerned with olives here. That's out ventral or anterior surface of what? What part of brainstem? What part of brainstem I'm discussing?
Medulla.
Yeah, medulla. I'm just trying to know how much attentive you are. So this is just a brief insert. So what is this fissure? Centrally anterior fissure, anterior medial fissure, and one side this fissure is what? Ventrolateral fissure. Echoing, I don't know where from where. Ventrolateral fissure. This one. Then still lateral to the olives, there is a posterolateral fissure. Okay, that's what. That's about here. Ventral surface of pyramids. I'll go to the next slide. Okay, same thing I must have written here. Let us go through that. Medulla oblongata, that is ventral surface. That means anterior surface. Okay, ventral means anterior surface. There are three sulci here: anterior, median, ventrolateral, posterolateral. There are three fissures or sulci on the ventral aspect of the medulla oblongata. And pyramids are the centermost things. They are in between anterior, median, and ventrolateral sulcus, which I told you. The olive fall between ventrolateral and I didn't write here. Ventrolateral and posterolateral. Between these two, these olives lie. And the cranial nerves come out from this. Where? Cranial nerve, what is this? 6th cranial nerve, 12th cranial nerve, and 9th, 10th. This is 9th, 10th, and 11th cranial nerve. One thing you should know that the 12th cranial nerve is more medial. It is more medial. You remember this. Always the hypoglossal nerve is very much medial. The rest are not that much medial in medulla. They are all bit lateral, but for hypoglossal nerve. That's what you need to remember, because there is something called as a lateral medullary syndrome and medial medullary syndrome. Medial, what I said, there are two syndromes which are frequently asked: lateral medullary syndromes and medial medullary syndromes. This medial medullary syndrome will be damaged in this in 12th nerve, whereas that is spared in lateral medullary syndromes. 12th nerve is not involved in this. Because of that, this anatomical importance, I was telling you all these things. Okay, I'll go to the posterior surface of the medulla. Now, as I told you that previously, actually there is a cerebellum here, but that has been knocked out for the study of medulla oblongata in this case. See this medulla oblongata. What is this part? Here you can see. Yes, this is actually what is this? What structure comes here? Fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle comes here. Fourth ventricle comes posteriorly. In the upper part of the medulla, there is a fourth ventricle. As you go down, this fourth ventricle will become a central canal. And that goes into the what? Spinal cord. Okay, echo. Just find out. Just avoid that echo. Okay. Fourth ventricle becomes the spinal cord there as you go down. And I was telling you about the posterior column here. It has been shown here, so you can nicely. There is a, as similar to the anterior median fissure, there is a posterior median fissure here. This posterior median fissure medially has got gracilis and what is one more? What is where? Cunetus. Where is? Here it is. Cunetus. This is red one is cunetus, yellow one is gracilis. That is a tract they come here. And these also decussate in the medulla itself. There is a level. The medulla, whenever you want to study medulla, they make a level of study. Like pyramidal is for motor decussation study. Then we'll go to sensory decussation, that is gracilis and quick decussation study and olive study. That's cross sections we take like that. That's why decussation, there are two types of decussation in the medulla, motor and sensory. Somebody is trying to join? What? Okay. You're getting my point? So as see here, they mentioned as closed. The lower part of the medulla is closed, whereas the upper part is open. That is because of the fourth ventricle which comes, and that is posteriorly by cerebellum and anteriorly by medulla oblongata. That's about this. We'll go to the same thing. I must have written here. Posteriorly, in the above part, there is a open to the fourth ventricle. Inferiorly, the fourth ventricle goes deep into medulla to form central canal. That goes into spinal cord also. Similar to the anterior median fissure, posteriorly there is a posterior median fissure. Just I told you and showed you the diagram. So internal structure of medulla will go into. As I told you, to study medulla, we'll group them into three levels. One is this is from lower to upper. The lowerest is decussation of pyramids. That is a motor. Decussation. Then decussation of medial lemniscus. This is sensory. That is posterior column. Then level of olives. These are three levels we'll study and try to understand the medulla oblongata. Now, this is a cross section of the medulla at the level of decussation of pyramids. That is the lowermost part of the medulla we are studying now. Here, this diagrams, it is showing there is a classical decussation. Can you see this? This is a medial structure. Medial structure here. As you go down, there is no olives. Olives come in the upper part. I'm talking about the lower part of the medulla oblongata. Here, the anteriorly, you are seeing the pyramids here, and they are going to opposite side. They go to opposite side. That is corticospinal tract. These are all descending fibers. They come from cortex, internal capsule, then go to the midbrain, where from the midbrain pons they come here. So here in the pyramids they cross to the opposite side, corticospinal tract. And here you can see lateral spinothalamic tract here, the far lateral. Lateral spinothalamic tract. And posterior cerebellar, intercerebellar tracts also come here. And this typical very big nucleus, trigeminal. Trigeminal nucleus extends from midbrain, pons. It is the biggest nucleus. Always you should remember that trigeminal nucleus is a very big nucleus. It starts in the midbrain. Then it comes to the pons here. Pons, there is a motor nucleus also. Then it goes down to the medulla, even to the upper part of spinal cord. It's a big nucleus, trigeminal. The motor parts lies in the pons part. That's a nucleus trigeminal now. You are seeing it is posterolateral, it is seen here. And in the posterior aspect, you are seeing at this part here. You can just see the medially, there is a, what is this? Facialis gracilis and facialis grunitas, which is this is a facialis gracilis and this is facialis gracilis here. And its nucleus. This is its nucleus. Their nucleus gracilis and nucleus grunitas, they are here. This part. This is the one. And at the level of pyramids, they are still on the same side. They are not crossed. Now when you read these sensory nerves, you should call them as ascending fibers. That means they are coming from periphery into the central nervous system. When you're discussing the pyramidal tract, you should discuss they are going from up to down. They are descending fibers. Now because of this, I'm putting it as C. They come from the periphery spinal cord. They ascend in the posterior column, and at the level of the lower medulla, still they are ipsilateral. They are not crossed. Okay, this what we should know. This is a central canal, which is an extension of fourth ventricle. So fourth ventricle here, you can see. And you can see the central canal is very much deep inside. And you are seeing all these nucleus are posteriorly placed. As you go up, the central canal comes here, very near, and almost there is hardly any tissue. And it will actually, you are dealing with fourth ventricle. The central canal, which is there, it will have moved up here to the posterior aspect. This is how the medulla oblongata at the level of pyramid is seen. Any doubts here? Students, are you there?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. No
Yeah.
doubt, sir.
Yeah, because sometimes internet will get disconnected, na? That's how it's concerned. Hmm? Hmm? Okay. Okay, then I'll go now. Next. Now this is a level of pyramids I discussed. Same thing. Yeah. One more thing at the lower level of the medulla oblongata. See, whenever you go into the brain, upper cortex and all that, the gray matter is what outside, and the white matter is inside. Am I correct? In the cortex of the brain. In the cortex, for example, this is a brain, and brainstem comes here and cerebellum comes here. Here, the cortex, the gray matter is almost outside here. Inside, you get a white matter. Here, inside this medulla oblongata, the 75% entirely placed pyramids, from pyramid about decussate, the opposite side. Centrally, there is a gray matter, and rest is white matter here. That is some typicality of medulla oblongata. You get gray matter, lot of inside centrally, but rest is all white matter. That's a property of medulla oblongata at this level. They can twist some questions on that base. Now, something about medial longitudinal fissures. Where is it? Yeah, here, medial. You are seeing a structure here. Can you see the structure? Medial longitudinal fissure. This is connected with eyeball movement. Eyeball movement. See, links three main nerves controlling eyeball movement. That is oculomotor, trochlear, abducent, and vestibular nucleus. All these things are linked inside this medial longitudinal fasciculus. You should know. Sometimes I can twist a question on that. A medial longitudinal fasciculus come here. Okay. Now we'll go to the one more level up, that is in the middle part of medulla oblongata, where there is a sensory decussation, that is crossing here. You can see here, it is going upside, this is going outside. There's a crossing here. Crossing of central sensory system happens at the middle part of medulla oblongata. See here, these are the pyramids, that is the descending corticospinal tracts which are here, and of course the intracerebellar, posterior cerebellar. These are spinothalamic tract here, spinothalamic tract here, and this is inferior olivary nucleus, which is concerned with the motor coordination, concerned with cerebellum. This is olivary nucleus, and they get more prominent when you go up. They come anteriorly. I'll show that. This is inferior olivary nucleus. They form the olives in the upper part. These things, but at the level of midbrain, at the middle of the medulla oblongata, the deep inside like this, and these gracilis, fasciculus cuneatus, they are here, and their nucleus are crossing opposite side. And centrally, this is the medial longitudinal fasciculus, which I discussed down, which are concerned with ocular eye movement. They are in the medial part, and just focus on this hypoglossal nerve, which is very much medial. Hypoglossal nucleus. That's why medial medullary syndrome, hypoglossal nerve is involved. Lateral medullary syndrome, hypoglossal nerve is not involved. Questions can come on that. And this is a central canal. Okay. And there is something called as nucleus ambiguus. There are two things which you remember: tractus solitarius and nucleus ambiguus. Nucleus ambiguus is a motor. Tractus solitarius is sensory. Sensory. They are more of a sensory. Tractus solitarius is a sensory part. Nucleus ambiguus is a motor part. Ambiguus is a motor part concerned with what? Swallowing, speaking, phonation, vocal cord, all these things. They get integrated in this nucleus ambiguus. Whereas tractus solitarius is a sensory. I'll come to that. That comes up in the next slide. It will come. Whether it is there here. Horizontal, posterior cerebellar, nucleus, fasciculus, no, it is not there. It will also, the next slide will be there. Okay, that is nucleus ambiguus is motor. That is a ninth. The nerves, they form a ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th. They mix and form this nucleus ambiguus. Yeah, medulla at the level of decussation is at the level of medulla medial lemniscus is sensory decussation occurs at this level. Structures are Structures seen are hypoglossal nerve, medial longitudinal fasciculus, nucleus ambiguous, and inferior olivary nucleus. These are the structures which I just now showed you. Okay. I'll discuss them. Nucleus ambiguous, you can ask, contains cell bodies of nerves that innervate the muscles of the soft palate, pharynx, larynx, and strongly associated with the speech and swallowing. So this is a nucleus ambiguous is a motor. Stratus solitus is a sensory. Okay, that is a concept of speech and swallowing. Inferior olivary nucleus, there I just now told you this, coordinate signals from the spinal cord and cerebellum regulate motor coordination. I'll go to more part of the, I'll show you next. Yeah. Now I'm in the uppermost part of the medulla oblongata. This is uppermost part, past. Now you can see the nicely, this is a medial lemniscus. What is this? This is a nucleus ambiguous. What you're seeing is, what is this is? Tectospinal tract. This is concerned again with the going into they end up with the cerebellum only, tectospinal tract, and this one is medial longitudinal fasciculus or a medial lemniscus, which is formed by crossed posterior column. After crossing the posterior column, they form this. This is formed. These two are formed here, and this is olivary nucleus, which you are seeing here, and they are forming a prominence on the anterior aspect of the medulla oblongata, and this is the nucleus ambiguous here. And lateral spinothalamic tract, you can see anterior cochlear nerve, trigeminal nerve, and posterior, which I wanted to show you is see nucleus tractus solitarius is here. This is nucleus solitarius is here, and ambiguous is here, motor sensory is here. In these other cranial nerves, other lower cranial nerves are in the posterior aspect here, and they are more laterally placed, like posterior cochlear nucleus. And this is now you want to see this fourth ventricle has appeared here. The central canal had disappeared, and you are able to see this fourth ventricle. This is the fourth ventricle, and hardly there is any tissue of the medulla oblongata in the posterior aspect. That is almost like open to the cerebellum. Okay, medulla at the level of olives, central canal is now a fourth ventricle, inferior olivary expanded entirely, making the external olives. That's it. Okay, other cranial nerves are lateral, hypoglossal nerve is a medial. Remember that the questions can be twisted on that. Now, let us briefly try to understand. Actually, the blood circulation of the medulla oblongata is a bit complex. And one thing you should know, there are 4 arteries which are shown here: anterior spinal artery, vertebral artery, posterior spinal artery, and posterior inferior cerebellar artery. This is PICA. Everybody keeps on asking PICA. This is PICA. This one they ask. The very favorite question. See, the posterior cerebral artery, its role is in the lower part, that is below the olives only. Only below the olives. See, there is no posterior cerebral artery supply in the upper part of the medulla oblongata. You can see that there is no posterior cerebral artery here. Whereas below the olives, there is a posterior cerebral artery here. Posterior cerebral artery here. Posterior cerebral artery here. Okay, that is posterior cerebral. You can see here. That's part. Red color is seen here below the olives. Whereas in the upper part, posterior cerebral artery has no role. So one thing you should remember: this part, anterior medial, anterior spinal artery. You can see here. Anterior spinal artery is supplying the medial part of the medulla oblongata. You can see here, anterior spinal artery. When it come down here, it is like this. When you come, it is like this here. Okay. And this part, this one is, what is this? What is this? This is a posterior spinal artery. Posterior. Posterior spinal artery is seen here, but it is not seen here. Posterior spinal artery. And this one is, what is this? This is a vertebral artery. So the lower part of the medulla oblongata is supplied by, is not supplied by, I can tell you, posterior inferior cerebral artery. That much I can tell you. Okay. Lower part of the medulla oblongata is not supplied by posterior inferior cerebral artery. And the upper part above the olives is not supplied by posterior spinal artery. These two things you should remember. Lower part of the is not supplied by posterior inferior cerebral artery. The upper part is not supplied by posterior spinal artery. Okay. Whereas the vertebral arteries, they are there at all the levels. Vertebral artery, you can see at the level and all the levels. Here vertebral artery is seen. Somebody is trying to join. I'll admit him. That is in brief about the medulla oblongata blood supply. Any doubts here? Any doubts? Okay. Same thing I have written here. What? If you're not able to write, put in chat box. I'll try to follow up on chat box also. Some students may be finding it difficult to speak. They may be having a net connection issues. So you can put them on chat box. I'll be seeing now and often. Okay. Even at the end of the class, I will go through the chat box. Okay. If you can speak out. Otherwise, you can use chat box too. Due to internet issues, or if the background is very noisy for you, you can use your chat box. Okay. So I just discussed same thing. So I'll go to the next slide. Any doubts? Shall I go to the next slide? If you don't answer me, okay. Now this is a diagram where you are seeing a Pica, Ica, SK. Pica, Ica, SCA. Pokemon, this is not Pokemon. Okay, see Pica. Pica means, what is Pica means? Posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Ica means what? Ica means what? Anterior inferior cerebellar artery. SCA means superior cerebellar. I'm not always all cerebellar artery. There are three arteries we supply here. Now, see these vertebral arteries, they come here. These vertebral arteries will give rays to the Pica. That is, they go from here and they supply the posterior most part, inferior and the posterior part of cerebellum is supplied by Pica. Of course, it supplies midbrain, this one also, which I told you, because medulla also. See, Pica is supplying here. Here, Pica is supplying here. In the upper part of the what upper part of medulla, upper and middle part of the mid level and upper part of the medulla oblongate is supplied by Pica. And along with that, it supplies the inferior and the posterior part of the cerebellum. Pica. And this Ica comes here. Ica. Ica, it comes here and it supplies the inferior and anterior part of the cerebellum, and it makes anastomosis with this. So there is a variable supply because there is anastomosis, good anastomosis between the Ica and Pica. So there is a variable degree of supply to the anterior and posterior inferior part. And at that comes where this Ica is a branch of basilar artery. It's a branch of basilar artery. Basilar artery is formed by combination of what arteries? Anybody? I expect you to know this. It is a very simple question. Basilar artery is formed by, I'll show the next diagram that it is there. Okay, I went too fast, I believe. I'll come back again. See where I put the figure. Yeah, I'll go back here. See, I'll go back to that slide later. See, this is vertebral arteries. These are vertebral arteries. Vertebral arteries, they are the branches of subclavian arteries. From subclavian artery is a branch of subclavian artery arises from which branch? Left side and right side. Innominate artery, which side? On the right side, it comes through what? Innominate artery. On the left side, it directly arises from the arch of aorta, subclavian artery. Okay. From subclavian arteries, it is vertebral arteries. They branch out, travel posteriorly, go into the vertebrae, transverse process, and start ascending up and go into the brain. Okay. There are two vertebral arteries which join here to form what? Basilar artery, which lies in front of the okay. This is a pons here. This is a pons. This one is a pons here. I'm talking about, yeah, I think so, diagram here. Yeah. See here, there's a diagram for that. You see here, this is a basilar artery, and these two are vertebral arteries. They're joining to form basilar artery. Same thing is enlarged in this slide. So, and if you want to see, this is what is this? This is actually pons. This is a medulla. This is cerebellum. Middle brain is here up. Okay. So they form basilar artery. This is, and this basilar artery gives a anterior inferior cerebellar artery, which supplies this. This is anterior inferior cerebellar artery going here. This is a pica, which is a branch of vertebral artery going here. Okay. These anatomy is important from many point of view. If you want to solve MCQs which come twisted, if you know this anatomy, you can solve them. So okay, this is ICA. This anterior inferior, not ICA. Okay, ICA. From anterior inferior cerebellar artery, there comes a labyrinthine artery. Or it can even come from basilar arteries. Labyrinthine artery can, I'll come to that because there is one question based on that. Labyrinthine artery supplies in inner, otherwise it is called as inner auditory artery. It goes to the ear. Very long artery it goes from here. Okay. So this is a basilar artery. This basilar artery comes here and terminally it divides into what? Posterior cerebral arteries. Posterior cerebral arteries. And this branch is superior cerebral artery. Before terminating into posterior cerebral arteries, it forms superior cerebral artery, which you are seeing here. Which you are seeing here. Okay. And sorry, superior cerebellar artery. Superior cerebral artery. And this is posterior cerebral artery. Now there is an anterior circulation here. This is what is this? Internal carotid arteries. And internal carotid artery will throw a posterior communicating branch. It joins here. And this internal carotid artery also gives rise to anterior cerebral arteries. They come here. And in between the two anterior cerebral arteries, there is a anterior communicating artery. So there is a circle here. This circle is called circle of what? Circle of what?
Willis.
Yeah, good. Willis. So this is called circle of Willis. And this one you always remember this. There is ophthalmic artery, which is actually a branch of internal carotid artery, and it has got some importance clinical. Remember this: internal carotid artery gives rise to a branch of ophthalmic artery, which goes and supply the retina of the eye. So if there is a block in the carotid here, it can throw a embolus into ophthalmic artery. There can be transient blindness, which can precede full-fledged stroke. Okay, this can happen. You should remember that. Patient coming with a transient blindness. That could be premonitory symptom of possible nearby stroke in future. Okay, they can come to ophthalmic. That's why they go to their last vision. They go to ophthalmic division, ophthalmic OPD, where they'll check the exam eyes, and they may find nothing because eyes, lens, and all those things will be normal there. They may miss it. It can happen. Of course, if the retina exam is came, they may pick it up, but they're all difficult things. So there can be confusion for the ophthalmologist because their focus usually in the eye. The brain part also can cause transient blindness. due to embolus from this carotid artery, which goes into ophthalmic artery. Yeah. So this is an intracellular artery. Okay, this is circle of Willis. So I'll go back to my slides. I think so. I went very far away from there. Khan ho gaya, ye tractor circus, lateral medullus. Yeah. Okay. Now I think so. I am done with this. There is no confusion here. Huh? Students, I'll throw in an MCQ now. Try this. What is this? Lateral medullary syndrome. Lateral medullary syndrome is most frequently due to which arteries? Vertebral arteries, posterior inferior cerebellar artery, anterior inferior cerebellar artery, basilar artery. Huh? Which artery is the? Huh? Tell me, possibly. This is the correct answer. It is most common secondary to vertebral artery. Of course, even this pica can cause. This is the first common cause. This is the second common cause. Okay. So, vertebral artery occlusion leads to lateral medullary syndrome, which is the commonest cause of the lateral medullary syndrome. Otherwise, also called Wallenberg syndrome. It is called. Lateral medullary syndrome. I'll come to its manifestations. This is posterior inferior cerebellar artery is the second commonest cause. If you want to try to know, see there are three here. There is a vertebral artery. There is a pica here. They are supplying almost like what you see. What you can see here is this laterally, na? You can see here. If that is occluded, the problem will be here. In that is the upper part, predominantly the upper part. You can have this. What all would go? This all these lateral nucleuses, 9th, 10th, 11th nucleuses would be at fault, and this olives also can be hit, and vestibulocochlear nerve also could be hit. And what do you expect? But remember this: pyramids are spared here. Pyramids are spared or supplied by anterior spinal artery. So in lateral medullary syndrome, if the pyramids are spared, what do you expect? Paralysis or no paralysis? If the pyramids are spared in lateral medullary syndrome, you expect paralysis, hemiplegia, or no? Hello? Am I confusing you? So see what we have discussed. I think so people know what is upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron. See the paralysis. Paralysis is different and coordination is different. First thing you remember this. Coordination could be cerebellar. Then there could be something called rigidity, which is extrapyramidal. I'll come to the extrapyramidal problem. Paralysis or weakness could be upper motor neuron or lower motor neuron. Now, these upper motor neurons are nothing but pyramidal tracts. They are traveling medially here in medulla. Here, see, they are traveling. Sorry, and they are traveling here. I would show so much on Saturday. This is a medulla which is supplied by anterior spinal artery. So in lateral medullary syndrome, which is this much or maybe less than that, it won't touch these pyramidal tracts. So there is in lateral medullary syndrome, there is no paralysis, but there could be ataxia, there could be sensory problems. I'll come to all that. You should always remember that in lateral medullary syndrome, or otherwise also called as Wallenberg syndrome, there is no paralysis. Okay, is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so lateral medullary syndrome is caused by vertebral artery most commonly. This is second common cause. Okay, I think so I put same thing here. Lateral medulla is also called as Wallenberg syndrome. The question can be thrown that way. The most common cause is vertebral. Second is this. Third is other things. Okay. Structures involved in the lateral medulla syndrome. Spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Ipsilaterally it will be used. Spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve, because as I told you, it is, or they are laterally placed. Vestibular nuclei, yes, posterior and laterally placed. Fibers of 9th and 10th nerve, they are involved. Nucleus tractus solitarius could be involved. Sensory nucleus. I'll show that what is it. I think so. Discussing more about it. This nucleus. Okay. And descending sympathetic fibers from the cerebellum can also be involved. Restiform form body of inferior cerebral peduncle also could be involved. Olivocerebellar fibers could be involved. Cuneatus and gracilis nuclei, which are posterior column. Posterior column sensation. Of that is a fine touch, tactile discrimination, tactile localization, tactile localization. They're all here. Kinesthesia, otherwise kinesthesia. But how do you check kinesthesia? Toe movement you do na? Toe movement. Toe. This is a toe. Make it up and down. Ask the patient to close. Ask him whether it's up or down. Kinesthesia. Na? Those things will be lost on the ipsilaterally. On the side of the lesion, these things will be light. Whereas this one is there. See, what is this? Spinothalamic tract. It will be opposite. Why? Why spinothalamic tract is opposite inward? Can anybody tell me? Why spinal? See, all these things are ipsilateral. Whereas this one is contralateral. Why? I told you that in the spinothalamic tract would have, by it crosses inside the spinal cord and then start ascending. Whereas posterior column, they go up in the medulla oblongata, then they cross. That's why the spinothalamic tract, which carries the sensations of pain, temperature, and what? Crude touch and all, they are lost on the opposite side. Opposite side. Okay, we'll go into more detail. Any confusion? Everything is confused or what? Nobody is answering. Okay, we'll go something about tractus solitarius. As I told you, this is a tractus solitarius here, and it is a sensory, similar to the motor ambiguous, is sensory tractus, and it includes the fibers from the facial, glossopharyngeal nerve, progress into the reticular formation. So these all things, anterior 2/3 of the taste sensation here. So tractus solitarius gives a taste sensation anterior 2/3, and glossopharyngeal nerve posterior 1/3, vagus nerve epiglottis. This taste sensation comes here. Mechanical and chemoreceptors coming from the arch of aorta, from the viscera, they are tracked inside this tractus solitarius only. So the vagus nerve, that's it. Vagus nerve. That is something about. I think so. I'll go more detail. Lateral medullary syndrome involves all of the following now, except
12th.
Yeah, good. I told you this because 12th nerve is a medially placed. These are laterally placed. So they get damaged here because it is nicely placed, because it is more medial. But it is involved in medial medullary syndrome. You should remember that. This is in the lateral medullary syndrome. This is in the medial medullary syndrome. Okay. Abdul Khan presents with pain, numbness, impaired sensation. Abdul Khan has presented with pain. He has got a pain now, numbness and impaired sensation over the half of the face, along with ataxia, nystagmus, dysphagia, and hoarseness of voice. His pain and thermal sensations are over the opposite half of the face are impaired. Pain and thermal sensations over the opposite side of the face are impaired. Because the dysphagia, what is So pain is on the opposite side, the rest are on the one side. That's what they're telling you. So that means spinal thalamic tract is a one side, and okay, the pain and thermal sensations are over the opposite side, opposite half of the face are impaired. Likely cause of disease is thrombosis of which vessel they're asking. Now, as pain, he has got what? Pain. Okay, that's what is described. Opposite side is gone, and he has got impaired sensations over the half of the face with the ataxia, nystagmus, dysphagia, and hoarseness of voice. So, this nystagmus, ataxia could be cerebellar or even vestibular. Okay, vestibular nucleus is also involved. Cerebellum is also involved in lateral mental syndrome. So you can have vestibular nucleus is getting involved. There could be ataxia. And there is nystagmus, same cause. Dysphagia and hoarseness of voice, 9th and 10th cranial nerves. Because of that, there could be dysphagia and hoarseness of voice. Okay, so these are all the signs of, again, lateral medullary syndrome. So the Ica, Pica, Basilar, Pontine. He has given 3 choices. There is no vertebral choice here. So the answer would be Pica. Yes? Okay. I just presentation of lateral syndrome. How the patient would present? He would have pain and numbness impaired on the face. Fifth, that is due to fifth cranial nerve. On the face, the pain is on the same side. Where on the body it is opposite side. Because it is a element type. Fifth nerve. Nystagmus, diplopia, oscillopsia, vertigo, vomiting, all these things. They are all manifestations of what? Eighth nerve. Nystagmus, diplopia, and all these things. Eighth nerve. Eighth nerve would cause all these features. Dysphagia is by 9th and 10th. Ataxia could be again eighth nerve or cerebellar. Both of them can cause ataxia. Loss of taste is again what? Same thing. 9th and 10th. Horner syndrome, there is involvement of sympathetic nerve. There. Numbness on the ipsilateral arm. Because posterior column. Whereas contralaterally you have on the body apart from face. Apart from face, you got a loss of sensation due to spinal thalamic tract. So on the face, the pain is gone on the ipsilaterally. On the body, it is opposite side. Pain. That is a lateral medullary syndrome. So in summary, the lateral medullary syndrome, posterior column ipsilaterally. Pain, face ipsilaterally. Body, pain contralaterally. No paralysis. No paralysis. There is a ataxia. These are the features of what? Lateral medullary syndrome. Are you getting my point? Face, pain is gone. That is because of element. That is lower motor neuron actually. But pain over the rest of the body is contralateral. It is contralateral. Posterior column, it is always ipsilateral. There is no paralysis. Ataxia due to vestibular nerve or cerebellar, both. Now we'll go to which of the following is the features of medial medullary syndrome. Medial medullary syndrome, ipsilateral numbness of the face and trunk. So in medial medullary syndrome, what is the medially placed? Medial lemniscus is there. Okay, there is a medial lemniscus. Ipsilateral numbness of face and trunk, and Horner syndrome, ipsilateral ataxia, and contralateral paralysis. Which of them is not correct? Medial syndrome. So, do you get contralateral hemiplasia in medial medullary syndrome? Where is this? Yeah. These are pyramids. These are pyramids. Okay, this is nucleus gracilis. So in medial medullary syndrome, this part is involved. Okay, this means it will cause contralateral hemiplegia. Contralateral hemiplegia because the decussate here and down. This is up. It's shown reverse. This is up. This is down. So okay, when they come down, they decussate. So contralaterally, you would get what? Hemiplegia. Contralateral hemiplegia you would get. And ipsilaterally, this could be numbness also there because decussation starts here and it will not be complete. Ipsilaterally, there could be numbness for the face. Where am I? Okay. So, but there is no ataxia. That is because neither cerebellum is involved nor your eighth nerve is involved. Both of them are not involved. You won't get ataxia, nor even Horner syndrome, which is a manifestation of sympathetic nerve involvement. Neither that is involved. So these two things are not features of medial medullary syndrome. Okay. Any doubt here? Same thing written here. And of course, there in that choice, there is nothing asked about hypoglossal nerve. Element type of 12th nerve cranial palsy. So, what are the features of element lower motor neuron palsy of 12th nerve? How the tongue will be? Anybody can tell me that? If you get a lower motor neuron type of 12th nerve palsy, will there be atrophy or there is no atrophy? See, paralysis is classified into UMN and LMN. These things are not taught to you. Paralysis is caused by either pyramidal, that is upper motor, or lower motor, peripheral nerves. Okay. So the 12th nerve is a element, but before its nucleus, it is UMN. Okay, here the rootlets of the nucleus and nerve are involved, so that means it behaves like a element. Okay, so it is a element type of 12th nerve palsy. So in UMN palsy, what you get? There is no atrophy, whereas in element there is a atrophy. Fine. There is a spasticity here. It is flaccidity here. Okay. Other signs like Babinski sign, all will come here if the rest of the corticospinal tracts are involved. Okay. That's a UMN and element type. You're getting me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
UMN and element type, they apply even to the cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are very much similar to the spinal nerves. Only thing they are in the face and the head, they come out through all those foramen and all that. They got some special names and special behavior. But for all practical purposes, their behavior is very much similar to the spinal nerves. Okay, if a cranial nerve is involved, it becomes element type. And it is corticobulbar fibers we call. So the corticobulbar means bulb means brainstem. Corticobulbar fibers, if they get damaged, due to that damage, if there is a paralysis of a particular nucleus or its nerves, then it becomes UMN type of. For example, you have very much studied 7th nerve. Okay, you know there is a called what? UMN type of 7th nerve palsy, element type of 7th nerve palsy. Anybody tell me 7th nerve? You should know this. There is no alternative. 7th nerve palsy, UMN, element. What are the differences? How do you differentiate a patient whether it's got upper motor neuron type of facial nerve palsy a lower motor neuron type of a facial palsy. What happens to the upper part of the face in upper motor neuron type of a facial palsy? It is spared or involved? How can? Hello? Tell me. I would expect you to answer the seventh cranial nerve. Why nobody is speaking? Seventh cranial nerve involvement. If there is upper motor neuron type of seventh nerve palsy, the upper part of face is involved or not? Chaitanya?
No.
Huh? Vandana?
No,
Good,
sir.
good. Huh?
No. Lower face is paralyzed.
In upper motor neuron type of facial nerve palsy, the upper part of the face, that is above the eyebrows and especially the forehead, there is no weakness there, because upper motor neuron type of facial palsy, there is a bilateral presentation there. Okay, bilateral presentation. Whereas if it is a lower motor neuron type of a facial nerve palsy, the whole of the face is involved. Even there is a deviation of the angle of mouth, the patient cannot close his eyeballs. What is the bell sign? When somebody tries to close the eyes, if there is a uprolling of the eyeballs, what it is called? It is normal or abnormal? If you try to close your eyes, what happens to the eyeballs? They roll up or they are stationary?
Roll up. Roll up. Roll up.
For everybody they roll up. But if there is a paralysis and the eyelid is not closing, that eyeball rolling can be seen. Because in lower motor type of facial palsy, the eyelid closure is deficit. You can actually see the eyeball moving up. Okay. If there is an upper motor neuron type of palsy, facial palsy, the eyeballs, eyelids will close. So that sign you will not be able to pick it up. That's it. Okay. Any doubts here? Okay, all of the following are features of Millard-Gubler syndrome. What is Millard-Gubler syndrome? It is, except they are asked, Millard-Gubler syndrome, except fifth cranial palsy, sixth cranial palsy, seventh cranial palsy, and contralateral hemiplegia. The answer is what? This one. Fifth is not involved here. There could be contralateral. It is one of the causes for contralateral hemiplegia due to an unilateral lesion on the ventral pons. It is a ventral pons here. Ipsilateral palsy of a sixth and seventh will be there. The fifth is not involved because fifth nerve is more posteriorly placed. Because of that, the fifth nerve is not involved in Millard-Gubler syndrome. But there is a contralateral hemiplegia because the pyramidal tracts run anteriorly. So in Millard-Gubler syndrome, okay, I should draw a diagram here. Okay, this is a face. Person. There is a cross hemiplegia. If this is damaged and the weakness is here on this side. So this is a cross hemiplegia in Millard-Gubler syndrome. So that is because of sixth cranial nerve palsy and seventh cranial nerve palsy. Facial muscle weakness will be there, and it is a lower motor neuron type of facial nerve weakness. Element is element type. So okay, with the contralateral hemiplegia. Third nerve palsy with the pupillary sparing is seen in all except. Third nerve palsy with the pupillary sparing is seen in all except. These questions, I discussed this slide in the last class because many people had left. I have put it once more. Third nerve palsy with pupillary sparing. Before jumping into that pupillary sparing and all that, we'll study the third nerve. See, third nerve, this is the cross section of the third nerve. So it has got a fibers here. Here, peripherally, these fibers are autonomic. centrally somatic. Okay. So centrally they are somatic, and the blood supply comes from the vasa vasorum for the nerve. Okay, they come like this. They come like this. This is a cross section. Okay, and if there is a coming like this, if these blood vessels are occluded or having ischemia, the deepest part will suffer the highest. Okay, so diseases like diabetes, hypertension, all those things, they damage the oculomotor nerve because of ischemia produced by compromised vessels. So the somatic issues will be there, whereas autonomic issues would be spared. But if there is a trauma, imagine a trauma, cutting, pressing, aneurysm pressing, cutting, injury, that would cut anything and everything. Okay, and these autonomic are not spared. So diseases like diabetes, hypertension, they will cause what? Autonomic sparing, because the surface is spared. Same thing I must written here. See, contains autonomic and autonomic parasympathetic fibers on the outer layer, and somatic fibers are deep down. Ischemia leads to somatic nerve involvement because decreased blood supply is deep to the structures like diabetes, hypertension. They cause like that. Whereas trauma, aneurysm, surgery, they would damage without caring for anything. So there is no pupillary sparing, and autonomic nervous system will cause pupillary sparing here manifestation. So pupilla are spared in diabetes and hypertension, whereas aneurysm and surgery, they are not spared, they are involved. Okay, now we'll come to the question here. So these two, their pupilla is not spared, whereas this one, they would damage. Okay. Turner palsy, yeah, one more thing. Eye is deviated out and down. Why? LR6 SO4 thrice. What is it? That means LR means lateral rectus is supplied by sixth cranial nerve. Superior oblique muscle is supplied by fourth cranial nerve. The rest are supplied by third cranial nerve. That's what. And this formula is a mnemonic. LR6 SO4 thrice. Okay, lateral rectus is supplied by sixth cranial nerve. Superior oblique muscle is supplied by fourth cranial nerve. The rest of all the muscles of the eyeball are supplied by third cranial nerve. That is, so eye is deviated out because what? Medial rectus is paralyzed here. It will go out, unopposed action, and it is pushed down. It is pushed down. Unopposed action of the lateral rectus and superior oblique muscle. They will cause out and down eyeball. If the third cranial nerve palsy, externally, the clinically you would see out and deviated, down deviated eyeball. People are dilated or paralyzed depending upon the cause. If they are spared or not. If they are spared, people is not paralyzed. You can have it is non-dilated people, normal people. If they are involved, you will have a dilated people. There will be ptosis due to paralysis of a levator palpebrae superioris muscle. We'll come to this artery. Anterior inferior cerebellar artery. I discussed about this. Occlusion can cause what? Contralateral lower leg weakness, urinary retention, hemiparesis, hemianesthesia over the same side of the face. So anterior inferior cerebral artery is at a variable level of infarction. That is because anastomotic with the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Okay, because I discussed about these arteries. Size of the infarct varies. If there is a good anastomosis coming from the posterior inferior cerebral artery, the damage caused by anterior cerebral artery will be less. and the posterior inferior cerebral artery is hardly supplying, the damage caused by the anterior inferior cerebral artery will be more, and it causes ipsilaterally deafness. There's a facial weakness. There could be vertigo, nausea, vomiting, nystagmus, cerebellar ataxia would be there, and Horner syndrome, that is sympathetic, contralateral lateral gaze palsy, contralateral loss of pain and temperature. These are the features of inferior cerebral artery infarction. The same diagram I put it here. This is ICA. These diagrams I had showed you just now. Anterior inferior cerebral, okay. The branch of the, we should know this. Anterior inferior cerebral artery is a branch of basilar artery, whereas the pica is a branch of, more commonly, vertebral artery. They can ask you this question, maybe in anatomy, which somewhere they can ask you this. Okay, it is a branch of basilar artery at the level of junction between medulla and pons. At the junction, it comes out, passing below the inferior cerebellum, supplying the anterior part, anastomotic with the pica. It gives rise to this artery. There's a favorite question. Labyrinthine. It is a very long artery. This tinnitus and all I read just now, anterior inferior cerebral artery. This is because of this. Internal arterial artery, labyrinthine artery. It comes out from anterior inferior cerebral artery, which supplies from medially. What happens is this pica, where is this anterior inferior cerebral artery? It comes here. This is, where is this anterior? Here, see here. It comes here, and it gives rise to branch here, long branch. Labyrinthine artery, it flows like that. Very long branch it is. It goes. They're all favorite questions. Elderly man complains of visual loss on the right eye. I explained this just now to you. I want you to answer this. Okay. Elderly man complains of visual loss right of the right eye over 20 minutes. Blood vessel involved is, which is anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery, internal carotid artery, basilar artery. Tell me, what is it?
Internal carotid.
Very good, very good. Yeah, internal carotid artery, because ophthalmic artery is a branch of internal carotid artery. Yeah, this is the diagram I have put. Just see, this is the internal carotid artery is coming here, is entering the brain, and this is it is going inside the, what is this? What is the structure? Internal carotid artery goes into what? In the cranium, cavernous sinus. Okay, this is a cavernous sinus. It goes inside the cavernous sinus. Okay, internal carotid artery goes inside the cavernous sinus. It comes out again, and it gives rise to ophthalmic artery here. You can see. Now after that it goes and it gives rise to, what is this? The one which comes up here. What is this? This is anterior cerebral artery. The funniest part, just see that it goes front and it goes back on the medial, but it goes back on the medial surface of the cerebral cortex, whereas this middle cerebral artery, MCA, it goes, and from medial to lateral it comes to the outside, from medial to lateral, in between. What is this? Parietal, this is frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe. Here, from medial to lateral, it comes out, this middle cerebral artery. And after coming out, it starts supplying on the lateral aspect of the brain, whereas the anterior cerebral artery, it supplies on the medial aspect of the brain. Okay. That's what. Pontine stroke is associated with all except Pontine stroke. I think I discussed this in last class. Pontine bleed and all that. Okay. Bilateral pinpoint pupil. pyrexia, vagal palsy, quadriparesis. There is a quadriparesis, there is a autonomic nervous system involvement. Because of that, there is a pyrexia, and similarly, there is a pinpoint people because of autonomic nervous system involvement only. Okay, but this one is not involved. Vagus nerve involvement. Huh? Okay, due to involvement of the basilar artery, the pontine stroke can happen because of basilar artery. Basilar artery lies in between, in the below surface of pons only. It lies there and supplies the pons. Basilar artery is formed by a combination of which arteries?
Vertebral.
Yeah, and they join and form basilar artery which runs in the below surface of pons, and they supply the pons from the ventral aspect, on the inferior and ventral aspect of the pons they supply basilar artery. Disturbance of descending sympathetic pathways can cause, thus it leads to all these things. Okay, hypertension, hyperhidrosis, hyperventilation, decerebral coma, and all that can cause because of involvement of sympathetic pathways there. There's a pontine stroke. The most common nerve involved in the intracranial aneurysm. This one, oculomotor. Oculomotor nerve can cause. Most common, without pupillary, there is no pupillary sparing. If intracranial is the cause for oculomotor, actually, the patient is complaining of headache, severe headache, and if he has got oculomotor nerve palsy on any side, and that patient, this aneurysm may rupture and cause, what is this? I'm writing here. It can cause subarachnoid hemorrhage. These things are discussed in previous class. Those newcomers may find it difficult to pick it up because of that. If you go through my previous videos, you'll understand this, what I'm telling. This intracranial aneurysm is they're also called as perianeurysms. They are in circle of Willis. I told you, na? Circle of Willis. Where is that circle of Willis? Yeah. Circle of Willis. This one, the aneurysm can come here, come here, come here, and they can be there. Some can be here and all that. They rupture into subarachnoid space. They rupture into subarachnoid space. Aneurysm. So, and they can compress this oculomotor nerve. Then, without pupillary sparing. If there is a pupillary sparing, think of diabetes and hypertension causing ischemia of this oculomotor nerve. There is a oculomotor nerve palsy with the pupillary sparing. Think of something like what? Diabetes, hypertension, atherosclerosis, all those things. You think. Whereas if there is no complete, of course, severe occlusion will also lead to pupil damage in diabetes. Completely gone now. Both inner fibers, external, everything will go. For third nerve palsy. Okay. Triad of Balint syndrome. What is Balint syndrome? Causes all of the following except. This is actually from last class. Which class? I did not touch this, so I put it to the last. Balint syndrome. Balint syndrome is a rare neurological disease due to posterior parietal lobe involvement. Parietal lobe, and it causes optic ataxia, ocular apraxia, simultanagnosia. These things. Optic ataxia means inaccuracy of visually guided eye movements. Their inaccuracy is there. Apraxia means saccadic movements. What are saccadic movements? I told about this. If there is a fast moving object, we can suddenly focus our eyeballs on that. That is a saccadic movement. In Balint syndrome, that is at defect. And if you give a pen to a person, he'll say pen. And if you give two, three things in his hand, ask him to pick up the pen, he won't be. Simultaneously, the person is given 2-3 things in the hand, he won't be able to get it. That is simultanagnosia. That is there in this syndrome. And the lesion is the posterior parietal lobe. That's all for this class. And next, this is about cerebrovascular diseases. I think so. Next, I will go to maybe epilepsy. I'll see now what is there in the index. Epilepsy or some other part, extrapyramidal symptoms, diseases. Now, if you have got any doubts, I would like to know. Santosh.